In this universe, there are names never written in history, because merely speaking them could ignite war. Earth sent a diplomat, but he was unlike anyone they had ever encountered. No threats, no army behind him, just one man, carrying a blood-soaked past and eyes that could silence an entire galactic council. He wasn't sent to negotiate. He was sent to deliver a warning. His name is Michael Vasto, codename Baba Yaga. And from the moment he stepped onto Century Prime Station, the universe was never the same. The first diplomat, but far from ordinary. I remember it clearly the moment Michael Vasto stepped onto the gleaming floor of Century Prime Station. Amidst thousands of beings with vibrant skin tones and aristocratic attire, one human in a simple black suit and carrying a small bag looked like a silent note in a chaotic symphony. They whispered about him. "Is that a human? Looks so fragile." I still recall the scornful gaze of the blue-skinned Himari by the corridor, as if Vasto were just a misplaced cargo delivery. But Michael didn't react. He simply kept walking, his eyes cold, emotionless, a gaze that once struck fear into even the most elite warriors of Earth. Before becoming a diplomat, Michael had served 20 years in Earth's top-secret special forces. They called him many names, but the most terrifying one, the one even enemies dared not speak aloud, was Baba Yaga. A green-skinned official with 4 arms approached and led him to his quarters. No greetings, no handshakes. The Galactic Station had no intention of welcoming a human, especially one they referred to as Mudspawn. Inside the plane room, Michael began his inspection, quiet, precise. He found 6 listening devices within minutes, but didn't remove a single one. "Let them think I don't know," he murmured, before unpacking his items with strange precision: a paper book of poems, a wooden pencil, and a bronze pendant engraved with forgotten symbols. That night, he sent a short message back to Earth. "Arrived. Cold reception as expected. Mission begins." The response was brief. "Be cautious. Hostile actions possible. Repeat. Diplomacy is top priority." Michael reread the message. Then, he smiled. They still didn't know. The man they sent wasn't just a diplomat. The welcome banquet and the wine glass slap. 3 days after his arrival, Michael Vasto appeared at the Golden Grand Hall, the venue for the welcoming banquet held for new representatives from distant worlds. Under the shimmering lights of the cosmos, hundreds of vibrantly colored beings sipped on liquid crystals, conversing in sounds ranging from vibrations, flashes of light, to waves of thought. But no one approached Michael. It wasn't that they ignored him, no. They deliberately shunned him, as if the presence of a human tainted the very air of their refined society. Michael wasn't surprised. He stood silently in a corner, holding a glass of Zarthosian winey local specialty he had no intention of drinking. Not because of the taste, but because of instinct. A survivor like him never let his lips touch something he hadn't first secured. A dry, venomous voice rang out behind him. "So this is Earth's finest." Michael turned. Standing before him was Kral, the towering leader of the Dravari delegation, had scaled, teeth like tiny knives, grinning mockingly. Michael offered a faint smile. "Earthlings were never known for their looks, Ambassador." Kral stepped closer. "Let me tell you something, Earthman. You still have mud on your feet. You don't belong among the stars." The room fell silent. More than 20 pairs of eyes turned toward them. No one spoke, only the tension of anticipation hung in the air. Then Kral swung his arm. The wine glass shattered at Michael's feet, crimson liquid spreading like blood. "Oh dear, an accident," Kral sneered. "Just like the kind of accident that might happen to you if you don't leave soon." Michael said nothing. He crouched down and calmly picked up the shards of glass. Laughter erupted among the guests. Kral barked, "Is this who Earth sent? A janitor bot?" Michael stood, fragments still in hand. "We all make messes, Ambassador Kral. Some of us clean them up ourselves, others leave them behind for someone else." He turned and walked away. And in that exact moment, his first enemy had already fallen into the trap. A warning from the shadows. That night, the corridor leading to the diplomatic quarters was nearly silent. Michael's footsteps echoed softly against the steel floor, but inside his mind, every sense was strung taut like a wire. Century Prime Station had never been a safe place, especially for someone under the scrutiny of over 20 civilizations, some of whom had thirsted for human blood long before he ever arrived. As he turned down the third hallway, a small figure stepped out of the shadows. A slender, blue-skinned being, eyes wide as moons, clutching what looked like a recording device. "Earth, Vasto," the voice rasped, barely above a whisper, as if the sound itself might kill it. Michael stopped. No weapon drawn, no fear. "Who are you?" I'm a junior aide from the Fixian delegation. I overheard them talking." The creature trembled. "Dravari. They don't just hate humans. They're planning something. They want to—" The sentence never finished. A faint sound, no louder than a breezan, the tiny body collapsed against Michael's chest. A needle embedded in its neck. No sound, no final words. Instant death. Michael pressed 2 fingers to its neck, seeking a pulse. Nothing. Then he looked up just in time to catch the blur of a shadow slipping around the end of the hallway. An assassin, or at the very least, a cleaner. 2 minutes later, the station's security team arrived. They glanced at the body and shook their heads. Probably an allergic reaction to off-world cuisine. Accidents happen. Michael didn't argue. He knew the truth, and that truth was worth more than 100 corpses. That night, once back in his quarters, he sent a coded message to Earth. Situation worse than expected. Dravari planning direct action. Request immediate support or extraction. The reply came almost instantly. Brief. Icy. No extraction. No support. Survive at all costs. Michael sat in silence for a long moment. Then he opened his luggage and unlocked the hidden compartment. A pencil. A book of poetry. A pendant. No one knew that these seemingly harmless items were about to become instruments of death. The night of 4 shadows, and the silent nightmare. At midnight, the corridor lights on the 3rd floor dimmed, subtly, as if someone had tampered with the internal system. Michael's door was slightly ajar. An eerie silence filled the air as though even the atmosphere itself held its breath. That was when the predators arrived. Not guards, assassins. Personally selected by Kral, the Dravari's finest killers. Trained to leave no trace, no witnesses. Make it look like an accident, the team leader whispered through his comms. The council must never know. Using an access code stolen from a Vorn official, the door slid open silently. Total darkness, no movement, no presence. The bed was empty. They spread out. 3 moved to sweep the room. 1 checked the bathroom. But as the door sealed shut behind them, click. A soft sound, barely audible, signaled the trap had been sprung. Then the lights died. "What the?" One of them started, but the sentence ended in a sharp hiss. A pencil drove straight into his eye socket, piercing through the skull with bone-cracking force. No scream, no time to fight back. The second spun, slashing wildly with an ultrasonic blade. It cut nothing but air. A metal chain looped around his throat from the dark. 1 precise tug, crack, and silence returned. The 3rd assassin triggered his emergency flashlight. The beam barely illuminated a motionless silhouette, Michael Vasto, standing calmly, eyes of steel fixed on him. Then, a hardcover book flew like a throwing star. The book's edge embedded deep into his neck. He fell without a sound. The last one, the team leader backed into a corner, hands trembling, blade shaking in his grip. "What? What are you?" he cried out, voice breaking in terror. From the shadows came a whisper, light as mist. "I'm just a diplomat." Hours later, when the lights returned, station security conducted their rounds. They found Michael Vasto in bed, asleep, peaceful, no blood, no bodies, no signs of intrusion. The room was spotless, like a nightmare that never happened. But the 4 assassins were never seen again. The rise of Baba Yaga. The next morning, at the Galactic Council session, Michael Vasto entered as usual. No one met his eyes, yet everyone could feel that something had shifted. 3 empty seats in the Dravari delegation spoke louder than any declaration. It was the first silent sign of a storm brewing deep within the station. When it was Earth's turn to speak, Michael stood and offered a polite smile. "Honorable representatives, Earth would like to propose a cultural exchange initiative. We believe that understanding each other is the best way to avoid unfortunate misunderstandings." His gaze lingered on Kral, who had turned pale, gripping his chair so hard his claws trembled. No laughter, no objections, only silence. Below the council chamber, rumors spread like wildfire. In the maintenance lounge, a purple-skinned technician whispered, "I saw that human dragging something long, heavy, wrapped in plastic. It left a dark stain across the floor." Another added, "I heard the waste disposal sector had strange markings. A janitor said it was old Earth script. It means, he who walks in shadow. These whispers, once dismissed, reached the ears of Fentalos, the station's chief of security. Alone in his office, he accessed Earth's classified historical archives. He scrolled past records of special forces units, ghost operatives, unacknowledged missions. But it wasn't until he typed the term asterisk, Baba Yaga asterisk, that the chill truly set in. The screen filled with legend. A witch who lived in a house with chicken legs, a Slavic spirit who hunted in the night. But beneath the folklore lay a sealed military file. Asterisk asterisk, Baba Yaga, code name for Earth's ultimate assassin. Identity? Unknown. Mission success rate? 100%. Witnesses? None. Asterisk asterisk. Then came the final line, the one that made him rise in alarm. Asterisk. It is not that we fear him because he kills. Asterisk. Asterisk. But because he is the one we send to kill the killers. Asterisk. And the name, Michael Vasto, from that moment on, was no longer that of a diplomat. He was a ghost. A warning. He was Baba Yaga. The massacre in the Galactic Garden. The biological garden of Century Prime was one of the station's rare sanctuaries where nature still held its form. Hundreds of flora from across the galaxy thrive beneath artificial moonlight, the air rich with sweet, exotic pollen. But that night, the garden became a battlefield. Michael Vasto sat alone on a stone bench, holding an old book in one hand, a small gardening rake beside him. He looked like a weary professor seeking a moment of peace, but he wasn't reading, he was waiting. From all 4 entrances to the garden, 20 assassins advanced at once. Clad in energy armor and wielding the latest plasma weaponry, they were the Council's elite task forces under direct orders from High Chancellor Vorfax. Asterisk, asterisk. Do not let him leave the station alive. Asterisk, asterisk. In the control room, Security Chief Ventalos watched through the surveillance feeds. He didn't stop them. He didn't interfere. Instead, he whispered, "Show me what you are." The sound of metal rang out as the team leader stepped forward. "Michael Vasto," he called out, "by order of the Council, you are sentenced to death. Any last words?" Michael closed his book and rose. His voice was calm, like wind through leaves. "Just 5 words. You should have brought more men." What followed wasn't a battle, it was a slaughter. Michael moved like a ghost. He didn't draw a weapon. He took them from his enemies, turning their own tools into instruments of humiliation. He flowed like water-shattering armor, breaking limbs, hurling soldiers into carnivorous plants. One attacker fell to a garden rake thrust through the neck joint of his armor. Another shot his own ally, trying to track Michael's blur. Throughout it, all no emotion, no rage, only cold precision. In the end, only one was left, Commander Drek shaking, weaponless, retreating. Michael approached and handed him a small objectus pendant. "Take this back," he said softly. "Tell Vorfax I'm coming." Then he turned and looked straight into the security camera eyes like frozen steel cutting through the lens. Back in the control room, Fentalos stared at the screen, realization washing over him like dread. He whispered, almost broken, "We've made an irreversible mistake." The direct warning, and the Council's final step. 1 hour after the massacre in the biological garden, every screen on Century Prime suddenly lit up in unison. The Council chamber, hallways, control center, 7, the sleeping quarters of Delegate Saul displayed the same image. Michael Vasto, blood on his face, eyes cold as forged steel. To all species of the Galactic Council, his voice rang out calm, yet resonant like a judgment bell. "Earth came in peace. We sent a diplomat. You chose betrayal." He bowed his head slightly, almost politely. "But now, you touched the wrong man." At that very moment, deep beneath the station, High Chancellor Vorfax sat hunched inside the command bunker on level 28. The original plan had been simple. Assassinate Michael, blame it on a rogue faction, and use the chaos to declare war on Earth. But now, 40 operatives were missing. The elite guard reduced to shredded armor in the garden, and his screen displayed only one message. "You should not have touched the diplomat." Then darkness. Vorfax jumped up, pulling a concealed weapon from his desk, panting in the pitch-black room. A soft sound echoed behind him like breath on the back of his neck. He spun, weapon ready. Nothing. Only the thunderous pounding of his own heart in a chest squeezed by dread. Across the station, systems began failing one by one. Communications cut. Transport vessels no longer responded to commands. The final defense squads transmitted brief reports. Contact lost. Unknown threat. No discernible movement pattern. Inside the main control room, a trembling engineer pointed at the security map. Red dots, each one representing a soldier, were disappearing one by one. No order, no pattern. It was like something was hunting them, something that didn't follow logic. Ventalos rose from his chair, face ashen. He's not just an assassin. He's the nightmare Earth kept for those who betray them. Meanwhile, in a quiet, unlit corridor, Michael moved silently. The diplomat's suit was gone. Only black remained, the color of night. And the final target was waiting, exposing the crimes and an Earth no longer weak. 3 days after the night, now known as the Night of Shadows, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The once crowded chamber was eerily empty. Many delegations had fled the station. Others had no survivors left to flee. The main doors opened. The air turned to ice. High Chancellor Vorfax entered. But he was no longer the arrogant ruler who once mocked humanity. Now, he walked slowly, flanked by 2 guards, not for protection, but to ensure he didn't run. Floating behind him was a line of holographic screens, broadcasting the full truth. Audio recordings of the plot to assassinate Michael Vasto. Documents revealing the plan to provoke war with Earth. Secret dealings with militant factions. Bribes, betrayals, and manipulation of the Council. No one spoke. No one defended him. No one could deny it anymore. Earth knew everything. A voice rang out from the upper rows, Admiral Zex of the Archivian fleet. Where's Michael Vasto? Is he still alive? Venelos, now acting head of security, shook his head. No one knows. After his final broadcast, he vanished. Some say he escaped in a stealth shuttle. Others believe he's still here, watching from the shadows. Zex sat down heavily. If he is, maybe that's a good thing, because at least it means he hasn't decided to kill again. A Nexian delegate whispered, trembling, "Is Earth now a threat?" Ventalos shook his head slowly. Number. They are a reminder that peace is real, but the cost of keeping it may sometimes be the presence of a monster. No laughter followed, no arguments, no denial, and no one could deny that the name Michael Vastor, the ghost called Baba Yagawas, now etched into the collective fear of the galaxy. Humanity was no longer weak. They no longer begged for a seat at the table. They took it quietly, decisively, with the very nightmare they had once kept hidden in silence. The heir, not an assassin, but a mother. Just 3 days after Vorfax's arrest, Century Prime trembled once more. Not from explosions, but from the arrival of a fleet unlike any previously recorded, appearing at the outer edge of the station's space. 20 warships, sleek, unfamiliar designs, smoved as a single organism. No hails, no requests for docking. In less than a minute, they surrounded the station, sealing every escape route. Alarms blared across the station, but no weapons fired. A single small shuttle detached from the lead vessel, modest in form, unarmed, unescorted. All eyes turned to the central atrium as its doors slid open. The figure who emerged wasn't a warrior, not an agent, but an elderly woman. Silver hair, slender frame, leaning on a wooden cane, dressed in clothes so simple they seemed almost absurd among the polished grandeur of the station. But her eyes clear, steady, carried an authority that came not from violence, but from experience. "Good day," she said calmly. "My name is Elevast. I believe you've already met my son Michael." Silence fell across the chamber. The air itself seemed to still. Earth has chosen me as its new diplomatic representative. I used to be a teacher, taught elementary school. I've learned that negotiating with children is sometimes harder than with intergalactic politicians. She chuckled softly, as if recalling a classroom memory. No one dared to laugh with her. From her pocket, she drew a bronze pendant, the same one Michael once carried, and gently placed it on the center table of the chamber. "My son said perhaps you'd find it easier to negotiate with a retired teacher rather than a retired assassin." She looked around the room, her gaze as sharp as a blade wrapped in velvet. "And that fleet outside? We call it the Baba Yaga class. It's only the beginning." A silent shiver rippled through the assembly. Humanity had spoken, and this time it was with the voice of a mother. Respect from the shadows, and a new peace. Elevast stood at the heart of the Galactic Council, like a still point in the whirlpool of history. No guards, no weapons only, a wooden cane, a resolute gaze, and the symbol of the sun who had once spread fear across the stars. "I did not come to threaten," she said slowly. "I came to propose a new path, a peace not built on suspicion, but on genuine respect." A few delegates glanced at one another, silent still. Outside, the Baba Yaga class fleet drifted around the station, unmoving, unspoken, a quiet reminder that required no cannon fire. "We once pleaded for peace and were betrayed. We sent a diplomat and you sent assassins. And yet, that assassin chose to prevent a full-scale war by leaving behind fear, not bodies." She paused, her eyes sweeping across each face. "And that is what my son wished for you to understand. Peace is not weakness. It is a choice made by those strong enough not to prove themselves with blood." A wave of silence swelled in the room. Then, like droplets falling into a still, pawn nods began. One, then another, and then all. No one objected. No one dared repeat old mistakes. Elivas smiled not in triumph, but in understanding. She picked up the bronze pendant from the table and slipped it gently into her pocket. "I believe this marks the beginning of a lasting friendship, better, stronger, and, above all, bloodless." She turned and walked slowly toward the great doors. No one stopped her. No one spoke. Each footstep echoed like a bell tolling the end of an era. Beyond those doors, the light of peace was waiting. And somewhere, in the darkest corridors of the station, someone still whispered that name with reverence, Sano, because he was a monster, but because he was the only one who could make the entire galaxy pause to listen to the voice of his mother, Michael Vasto, Baba Yaga, and Earth had become a legend.